This is the Real Footy Podcast. Coming up, an up and down round of footy with some crackers and some stinkers. The Hawks were brave against the Crows but lost Will Day, their best midfielder, again as they look ahead to a final shaping clash with Collingwood, who are shaky for holding on to top four after sitting on top of the ladder for most of the season. We'll look at that and more right after this.
Captain back in 2017, would have thought his time for genuine success might have passed. Think again. Taylor Walker with two massive goals. The text message is loud and clear. High ball goes in. Hillthorpe join the throng of defenders. Will Day, he doesn't hit it as he might have, but a bit of luck is a damn good thing. The bouncing goal from Will Day.
Will Ashcroft just had trouble getting it. He's got it now. Releases over the top. Morris around the Bailey. The Lions will have their revenge in this month or the next.
Hello and welcome. My name is Michael Gleeson, and joining me today are Jake Niall and Caroline Wilson. Welcome to you both.
Michael, Jake.
Caro, Glees, good to be here.
Funny round of footy. Four games decided. There was a stat we were given. Only the third time in the history of the game, in over 100 years, have four games been decided by 80 or more points. That's what we had.
Yeah,
Big blowouts.
I mean, I don't know what you do about the divide this year. Is it just an anomaly, Jake? I mean, what was the stat I heard somewhere the other day that when top nine play bottom nine teams since early in the season, 35 games, the only time a bottom nine team has beaten a top nine team is when Sydney beat Freo.
What about St Kilda beating Geelong?
This is in the last however many weeks.
Yeah.
After that. Look, it's been a real problem. It's a real problem for the broadcasters, particularly the free-to-air broadcaster, and the AFL, and this pressure on wild card rounds. And
It'd be nice if they just admitted they got the fixture wrong. It wasn't... I'm not going to go over old ground, but I banged on about last week about Geelong, as Ed Gleeson wrote about it in his 4 points today.
Yep, you were right.
Yeah, it's and
Geelong
people are just
very
distorting.
Defensive. But...
Well, they shouldn't be. Why not just admit that you got a good draw? And it's just not. This is just not good enough, and people should put their hand up and say we got it wrong. It's not Geelong's fault.
Did you hear from a Geelong friend of ours who's determined that Geelong actually have got the fourth worst fixture?
Oh, yeah, I got that too.
Yeah. I just don't buy it. And I don't think the AFL buys it. I think the AFL are aware that Geelong had a very generous fixture.
So did Adelaide.
Yeah.
But Adelaide finished bottom six. So it's sort of...
Different.
Yeah, different. But I think they've got to have a look at the fixture. This is a good opportunity for the AFL to look at the fixture. It's something that fans obsess about, and you can look at it not just in terms of what's fair on the ladder, but also, I suppose, the financial things.
I suppose without going over that old ground, we are at a point now, though, where even though there's these blowouts, the finals is reshaping itself, and the top eight is reshaping. Adelaide's hit the top of the ladder. Collingwood's dropped down and now looks even vulnerable to missing top four. If their losing continues. GWS
look really shaky and completely vulnerable.
And Gold Coast now look like they should make it.
Yep.
They probably felt like that after beating Brisbane at home. So there's still movement in that top bracket, which is
the
important.
Finals on paper look incredible.
Let's just get to them.
It's just. Do we have to go through the next 3 weeks of pain and it's just been so tedious.
On that, what did you think of the one 1v2 at the weekend, Jake? Brisbane, Collingwood. Brisbane came out with, I think, a bit of a point to prove after having lost to Collingwood 5 times, I think, in a row, but also losing to Gold Coast last week.
Yeah, it was 4 times. They'd lost 20, both in 24 when they won the premiership to Collingwood, including that 1 point game at the end of the year that cost Brisbane top 4. And they lost the grand final, of course, of 23, and they lost the other 2 Gabba games, including off a 5-day break. So I think that Brisbane, I think this game was every time this year Brisbane have had to win the game. I speak of 3 games. One was over at Gather Round when they played the Bulldogs. They had to win that game, I think. One was when they went to Kardinia Park and they were trying to stay in touch with the top 4. They had to win that game. And then this game, I think, to be sure of making or be confident of making the top 4, they had to win this game. and they've won all three. So this is a team that if you look at the talent they've got, and I speak of the midfield, which is where they got hold of Collingwood in the crucial part of the game, which is the third quarter. Both Ashcroft brothers, Lachie Neale, Josh Dunkley, who's a muscle player, who's a really amazing pickup for them, and Hugh McCluggage, who's like just an absolute star. He'd be the best player at 8 to 10 clubs, I reckon, in the AFL.
Yep.
And I thought he was the best player on the ground. People
Never
could
all
argue
Australian.
maybe Logan
six.
Morris kicked 6, I suppose. Yeah, of the midfield players, but the game felt like it was won in the clearances.
I thought Harris Andrews was sublime.
Yeah,
I thought his defensive work was
good.
Just,
I thought.
But I agree with you, Jake. Another telling thing, if you look at the best players, so many of them were ones who put in absolute stinkers against Gold Coast the week before, including Dunkley, who really, has a bad game and stepped up. So, I don't know what the coach said during the week, but...
Yeah. Well, they're a team that it's almost seemed like they need to be aroused to win in order to pull out all stops. And you can see their pressure was through the roof. I think it was something like 240 or something in the first half, which is if a team, without being too technical for the listeners, if a team is handballing a lot, which Collingwood were, your pressure can be much higher. If they're kicking, as Brisbane often do, it's harder to have your pressure at the same high level. Great performance by Brisbane. Collingwood, a bit of trouble there, and they've got to get through
the last four.
The last four, they've had 2 under a goal. And have now got to scrap it with Hawthorn, which is going to be a fascinating game.
Are they too reliant on Nick Dacos?
Yep. He's close to the best player running around, but they are, and they would need DeGoey coming in. I thought a couple of lesser players were exposed, and I speak of Ned Long, who's done amazing things this year, great effort, but he did not use the ball well. His weaknesses that led him to be delisted by Hawthorn. Yeah, there was a couple of decisions he made with the ball that were poor. He's a bit down, and he's got a battle to, I imagine he'll retain his spot, but I don't think that should be automatic. And the other one is, Charlie Dean will get dropped. I would just say he was exposed. Collingwood, in fairness, down back were thin. Without Howe,
they have been through all
Frampton.
of these string of losses. When Frampton went down, you go, okay, with Howe out as well, you go, okay.
Howe's in his mid-30s.
Yeah, he's 35. I think
he's a good player though.
He's really important.
I agree.
He's had a good season.
He's had a great season, and it was glaring how they were missing him. But on the positive for Collingwood, having DeGoey back, he showed something.
Yep.
Bobby Hill's back, better for the run. There's going to be they're 2 pretty big ins late in the season.
But it's not ideal, Glees. You've written about it in your column. It's not ideal to be trying to integrate good players, including your next best midfielder, really, if he's up and running in DeGoey, into a team at this point in the season. It's not a settled. This is not a settled
game 2, isn't it? Like that Will Day was pretty good week 1, and then the injury comes back week 2. So next week will be interesting.
It's not, Jack, but I think that it's better than. I actually liked what they did with DeGoey, that they didn't try and rumble through the season and manage him through with his Achilles and that. They put him off. Try to deal with the injury, get over the injury, rest, recover, do a mini preseason, come in for the last month of games before finals. To me, that's pretty smart. But you're right. What it does do, though, is he arrives into the team when they've had a season without him, where they've tried to get a settled midfield. But he's only going to improve them, as we see with some of the players that were, as you say, were exposed. I think another guy, Will Hoskin-Elliott, he's been fringe this year. He's had a couple of good games. He had a stinker the other night.
You wrote about Dan Houston?
Yeah, bad game.
How
it just hasn't worked.
His season?
It so far hasn't worked. He's a really good player, and I understand completely the logic of going for him, but I didn't agree with it at the time because I thought that you were giving away a future pick for him at a time when you've got a really old list. So
what did they actually give?
It was they traded the future first, and they used the pick from Joe Richards
and
Noble. So
costly.
Effectively, you could have traded this year's pick into a first round pick.
They would have
last
had
year.
pick 13, which would have become 15 or 16.
Yeah. And a couple of other picks in the second round or whatever. So anyway, they didn't do that, and they went after Houston, and the logic was sound that we're going to put these two guys. We'll have, the game's all about rebound defenders, and we'll have two of the best users of the ball and creative talents behind the ball in Dacos and Houston. But Josh Dacos, that is. But it's not really working that way because it feels like you can't have two if both players are not very accountable defensively. And Josh isn't. It's what you have to cop with someone that is a hyper-attacking, creative defender. And Houston is, and they're going to Josh's first choice distributor. So Houston's not getting as much of the ball. And he's still just he's trying to find out where it is he can play his best footy for them. And so are they. Now, I'm more worried about that.
Costly frees late.
Yeah.
I mean, you could argue that they were tough, but
I think the first one, I thought one was okay. The second one was okay. I think Bailey's was not a free kick. I think Bailey's was a mistake by the umpire. He clearly went down.
Yep.
I think the second one was
Morris, I think.
Yeah, I think that was
So they've gone after Jack Silvani because they need to bolster their defensive work. How did you find the banter between the Collingwood coach and then Michael Voss responded on the weekend?
Oh, I'm not going to criticise McRae
because
for telling the truth. We this business of we've got to get as a.
Was he telling the truth though?
Well, he was telling
Had
the truth.
there really only been one date?
Well, I don't know.
He confirmed that he'd met with them.
He said he'd met with them. I mean,
Said we've been on a first date. We might have a second date. There were a few who believe this.
I don't know how many dates. I don't know how many dates they've been on. I'm not sort of following their
courtship.
But the way he says it would have really galled Carlton people, wouldn't it?
Oh, look, people meet with other clubs. A good deal more of this happens than we realise. This is just that the Silvani story is so freighted with other things.
Yes, but Michael Voss made it. Oh God, there's the family feud. There's the feud between the two CEOs.
We could do a documentary on the Silvanis and Carlton. I mean,
except Michael Voss said that's not the way we would behave in terms of making the comment. Like you don't need to say what he said.
I'm
to
not.
A teammate,
I repeat,
former teammate.
I am not going to criticise any coach.
Well, I am. I
thought it was for meeting with telling the truth, because if we can't have it both ways, Cara. We can't say don't he wouldn't comment. Well, he told the truth. I'm not going to get on the high horse about that.
But you can understand, Jake, that the opposition coach can take offence at it.
He can take.
He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to enjoy his honesty.
Well, they meet,
particularly
they
Jake.
Anyway,
particularly at a time when we have had the Mitchell meeting with, flying to Perth to meet with players, Oscar Allen.
There are ways and ways. I mean, Geelong people still get annoyed at me for having a crack at them about the pursuit of Travis Boak, but there was an arrogance about that and a sloppiness about being seen that was really not good enough. I think Sam Mitchell and
flying into Adelaide and being surprised that you get noticed as you get out of the airport.
Jimmy Bartell and Joel Selwood. But whereas I think the Oscar Allen one was bad luck. It was bad luck that it got out. But I just thought there was a smugness about the way McRae framed that. And his opposition coach, who he reached out for a few months ago because he was feeling for him and let us all know. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit down on McRae. Maybe I'm being unfair, but I didn't like it.
I'm not that high, as I said. I just think that there's a lot of
showed bad grace.
Maybe his tone was a bit smug, but I
don't think. Well, maybe it comes across as smug. I think he was trying a bit like when he played down the sledging in the GWS game when Kingsley went back at him, and he said, "Oh, I'm cheeky. He tries to play up that I'm just being fun, which doesn't always wash with someone else. And I don't think it washed with Michael Voss, and I don't think it washed with Adam Kingsley, but it probably washed with the broader public just listening in and going, well, at least as you say, he was honest. He told.
Well, and by the way, just to reiterate, I want to see Jack Silvani in a Carlton jumper next year. I just think that would be better for Carlton, and I'm not 100% convinced that this is a good move for Collingwood either.
Well, someone at Carlton said they've spent a long time trying to find a wingman for Jacob Weitering, and they looked like they'd found one this year, and he might be going.
Well, someone said at Carlton said that directly to me, those words.
Right. Maybe it was you that told me.
5 years. Yeah. 5 years they'd spent.
Will Day, probably the most awful thing to come out of the round. And we don't want to, we're not doom riding him, but a third foot navicular again.
A potential
there's a
captain
short-term
of the
thing,
footy club.
captain, their best player.
In the lead into a final series where, Hawthorn set the competition alight late last season, and into that, I think Hawthorn have had a pretty good year when you think that they had that one brilliant final against the Bulldogs and were, pretty impressive against Port Adelaide but lost. And Sam Mitchell said people are going to tip us to win the flag and, just temper expectations. They've had a pretty good year given that they've had Day for hardly any of the time. But they need Will Day, and he's gone now for the year. They're going to have to really look at, obviously, how they manage him going into next year. And they've copped a bit of criticism for the way it played out on the weekend. But
well, it's because Mitchell went into the press conference and said, basically, I chose not to ask anything of the medical people, so I therefore wouldn't be able to tell you anything or lie or whatever.
Yep.
Because there was that stupid moment where, he was coming off the ground with cramp. This wasn't the foot.
No.
And the whole game was held up while a player was hobbling off with cramp. Well,
yeah, that'll change.
It's got to change. It's a silly overreaction to what was a bad incident with Schultz last year, with this year, with the concussion, and you've got players running around a player concussed on the ground. Cramp has been going on forever and a day.
But in a close game, when it gives the other team, it gives teams a chance to, get their positions right.
Well, they'll be like the England cricket team. They'll be stalling in the last minutes of the game, wasting time.
It was a terrible look.
Gee, it was a good game, and it was
a
a
game
that the competition needed, like on a Friday night.
Well, the Thursday night and Friday night were good games.
Essendon and Carlton debacles. It was a game that was needed. It delivered. Hawthorn, I thought, lost few friends from that performance, and Adelaide, serious chance to win it all.
Oh, and just watching Isaac Rankin and Taylor Walker, those last two goals, particularly the first one, that was an extraordinary performance. Adelaide, I think they're the real deal, Jake. They're the premiership favourite.
I don't know whether they are or whether Brisbane. Yeah, I don't know. Collingwood obviously can't discount them completely, but I would say Adelaide are certainly in pole position because they're certain to be top two. Almost certain.
Home finals.
Get to the MCG. They might be playing I don't think it really matters. One thing about this year, I don't think the home ground of the team has been as influential as it has been in the past. And maybe in the finals we'll see. I wouldn't be shocked at all if there's an upset of a team in the top four. Like Brisbane look like they could win anywhere.
Geelong said.
I think it'll worry them with it.
Well, they only need to win at the MCG on grand final day if they get there.
They've won their last 6 at the MCG.
Yep.
Yeah, they've broken that. Geelong plays well at home, as you pointed out earlier, Jake.
Well, they play well at the MCG, actually.
They do play very well there.
One of my favourite things, Steve Hocking, who's re-signed to the club for another 4 years, or 3 or 4 years, he's managed a lot this year, not least handling Bailey Smith. And, he's got a youngish list manager, very good list manager, but a youngish head of footy, I should say, and some other stuff as well. And he is adamant they are not interested in home finals at Cardinia Park. That conversation is over.
Is that because he worked at the AFL and they all groaned whenever Colin Carter or whoever banged on about it?
He said that at the start of the year, Jake, when we all went out there.
Good on him.
And he's just adamant that, no, we need to win at the MCG. We love the MCG. That's where the finals need to be played.
Geelong in finals will pull minimum 70 to 80,000, pretty much whoever you're playing. They're not getting, you're getting 50 at most down, isn't it? 40?
Well, it's also growth. I mean, if you want your club to grow, 40. If you want your club to grow, you have to have some MCG presence because they can't fit them all in. They're a pretty big club, Geelong. They're not.
Yeah,
they've got the best of both worlds, and it's sort of a recognition that this is a good setup because you're also appealing when you want to recruit players like Jeremy Cameron. You can say to players, well, we play these games at Cardinia Park and most of them are full, but we've also got big games against Hawthorn and Collingwood and Carlton and whatever at the MCG. And that you play, you get Broadway and you get to go down to the farm.
So we mentioned Will Day because it's a repeat injury of what has been a really serious problem for other players to overcome, but a consequential one as well out of the weekend with the Hayden Young with a groin injury, significant for Freo, particularly heading into finals. How significant is that, do you think? And I mean, I know there's talk of Nat Fyfe still being able to be back, but he's not the Nat Five.
He's not going to have the Nat Five if he gets back. Is not going to have the impact of Hayden Young. Hayden Young's
got injured in the warm-up a few weeks ago. I don't think.
Yeah,
I'd be pretty amazed if we see Nat Five again, or certainly see him have any influence at all. Big loss.
Yeah, look, no, that's a bad loss, and that would be with a groin injury. You'd say that would be home and away, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
and you'd be a bit holding your breath when the finals come. I think for our
groin seems to be a bit more varied in recovery times. Where a hamstring, you'll say, they always 21 days or whatever, and they're pretty much back. Groins can be a bit more open-ended.
Yeah, but if all the top teams have got significant.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying out
Geelong
of this
have
weekend.
It was
a significant impact. From
you're
that
absolutely
game.
right, and GWS losing Buckley and Kelly last week for the home and away. The Bulldogs seem to be getting players back. I mean, the Bulldogs are the wild card for me.
And we will talk about them in the second segment, which is coming up after this.
We're online all the time. Just search Age Real Footy on Facebook or Twitter.
This is Miller up. The give and go. Gets it back from his mate Windhager and takes on Hansen. With all the moves. 3 bounces through the middle of Marvel Stadium and the kick is up to it. Paul marks inside 50 and Maz says there's not anyone in the game that can come with me.
Well, St Kilda showed their steel. Or did they, Jake? Jake Steele made the sub in their win over North Melbourne, which was odd because of being captain. But Ross Lyon said he's a bit injured, a bit banged up, so they held him back. What do you think of that?
No, fine. Ross knows what he's doing in that regard. Jack Steele's not, he's not Marcus Bontempelli.
No, but it is hard to lead as
inside
captain from the back row of the bench.
I get sick of coaches, and I've had arguments with a few, and I don't want to ruffle any feathers, but their dislike of the sub rule.
Well, they pushed for it.
I know. Well, they just wanted an extra player.
Yeah.
But now they've got the extra player, they don't like naming them as sub. And they talk about, Brad Scott talked about, he wants 2 ruckmen and it's going to stop that. There are some teams who still do have 2 ruckmen, but I can understand all the arguments. But who creates this sort of notion that it's an insult to be the sub? I mean, is it that bad to be the sub?
Well, it used to be an insult to be started on the bench. That doesn't mean anything now.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be normalised. I'm not with the coaches on this. I'd keep the sub rule.
I would too.
I don't have a strong view on it. I reckon whether you have 4 or 5. I mean, the player always comes on. I like the fact that you don't feign injuries now, or you have to miss the next week if you come off with it.
Let's not forget, this was really about protecting integrity. In terms of if you lose a player, you were a better chance.
All those stats.
It was about concussion initially.
Yeah.
And then it became all injuries, and then everyone faked it. So they didn't respect it, so they made it.
But the thing is, you make it 5, there will be a push to say the numbers show that when we lose one of our 5, our chance of winning decreases. So.
Well, the other thing is they've also limited the other part of this. They've limited the interchanges. So the interchanges,
well, there's a reason for that, and I like
good reason for that.
Yep.
And in fact, if a former Carlton ruckman whose initials are Mike Fitzpatrick, I think he would have had it down at about 30 or 40.
Yeah, he's with KB on that, isn't he?
Yeah, there's old school people that have got old school views, and that's okay.
What did you make, Caro, of Alistair Clarkson talking? The coach who's about to see his team finish bottom 2 for the 6th year in a row, talk about the hysteria of expectation.
I thought it was insulting to North Melbourne supporters and members, because why should they not expect last week we saw a team that had 12 first-round draft picks lose by, was it 100 points or around that to Geelong? There is a reason why you become hysterical if you're a supporter when you've seen bottom 2 performances for so many years. There's a reason why you would hope with Alistair Clarkson coming in as coach and all those draft concessions and all those good young players that this sort of strategy to bring in some older players, which clearly hasn't worked.
No.
There is a reason why you're getting pretty hysterical with expectation. And frankly, North Melbourne need more hysteria because I'd rather that than nonchalance or complacency or not caring that they're losing all these games.
Look at the difference between the reactions to losses by Melbourne, who are not a big club, where there is some level of, I'm not going to say hysteria, but there's certainly Melbourne supporters texting me directly saying,
savage
disappointment. People saying Goodwin's got to go and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there are different expectations from a side that had won a flag recently.
Carlton, Carlton, where there is, there was graffiti on the walls and everything, and I'm not condoning any antisocial behaviour by fans, but North, if anything, the problem is that not enough people actually give a stuff.
Or the resignation. It's
the acceptance. Is this an acceptance of poor performance?
They played their 100th anniversary game, 100th year of being in the competition, and less than 30,000 people.
25,008, which I always found was a convenient number to just tick over the 25. But
it was I think they need more hysteria down at North Melbourne.
Well, they need more wins. They need some semblance of a trajectory.
Do they need to go to their fans with, we're doing a footy review?
Another one.
I think we need to hear from the CEO and the president. I said that last week. I think they need to. There needs to be some strong messaging that this is not acceptable, because frankly it's not. And there's no reason why North should be still this bad. Now, maybe they'll turn it around next year. Maybe we saw some signs on the weekend. I don't know, but I reckon they've been so disappointing.
Their own internal, no matter what Clarkson says, their own internal expectations were not to be where they are.
No, they thought they'd be a 6 to 8 win season.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
And, which
possibly more.
The fans would like. Would not only like, but the fans had that level of expectation too, that, we start to trend upwards.
Yeah.
When do we start trending up?
Yeah, the one group that seems to get agitated about it, actually, some of the 90s players. There seems to be a bit of, because they're the last. Well, it always happens when a club.
Yeah. Like the Wayne Carey gang.
Yeah. Corey McKernan, probably. David King has got a, significant voice in the media and says a bit, and there's.
You don't hear as much from Stevens and Archer and.
Well, they've been on the board.
Well, they've got boys playing there too
now,
which sort of adds to it as well.
Jake, you wrote a column on the weekend, interestingly, comparing the Michael Voss and Simon Goodwin situations and the respective ways that their clubs have handled it as well.
Mm.
Just talk us through what your thinking is there.
Yeah, and Caro also addressed Melbourne.
Yes, in detail.
In detail on the myriad issues that Melbourne face very well. Well, look, I think that the short of it was that Melbourne, it's a harder call on Goodwin. I think that Graham Wright has had a front row seat to Michael Voss, and so has the president. Rob Presley's been in the club for a few years. He didn't just appear. And he was well known to people in the footy department, and he was very in touch with people in the footy department, even when Luke Sayers was the president. These guys know they've got a much better sense, I think. Whereas if you have, as per your story, Caro, if you have this instability in the leadership at Melbourne, where you haven't had Steve Smith, and Brad Green's been the president as an interim president, you had an interim CEO, as you highlighted, Caro, and I don't think Paul Guerra and Steve Smith are well placed to come in and preside over the removal of the coach, or indeed,
or the head of footy, or the head of fitness.
Yeah, but if the head of footy, the other problem here is the head of footy. If the head of footy is under pressure to keep his job at either club, the head of footy cannot really have much of a say necessarily. In some clubs, the head of footy, like a Neil Baum figure or a Jeff Walsh, would actually be having a say at Collingwood when Nathan Buckley was retained. That was a big say. So Melbourne are not well placed to make this call. I think Carlton, I'm not saying whether he should or shouldn't go. I'm saying Carlton are in good position. Do you broadly agree?
Yeah. Why wouldn't Brad Green be well placed to make that decision if he was there? The former player who was part of and involved with the review last year has overseen how that review's been implemented this year or not implemented properly this year, and hasn't led to the change they expected. He's still got months beforehand, and it's a consultative handover with Stephen Smith as well.
Yeah, I do think Brad Green is pretty much running the club, to be honest. I mean, the board has pretty much been running the club. This is no insult to David Chippendall, the interim CEO, but he went for the job. He was very, very disappointed when he missed out, particularly because it went to a non-footy candidate. I think he would have worn a strong footy CEO better. So Brad Green has been making some key decisions. Now, there's just a few things that, I picked up in researching that story and that I already knew. And a lot of them were Gary Pert appointments. Like, even little things like Matt Goodrope, the media boss, being the minder of a player like Clayton Oliver, who was at the time in the grip of a triage between the AFL's mental health people, the AFLPA, and the CEO of the AFL and of Melbourne. And yet this unqualified, respected but unqualified club staffer is looking after him. Petrarca still wanting out, and I'm absolutely convinced by that. The lack of anyone who looks like they could replace Max Gawn as captain. Yeah. Mark Williams as the goal-kicking coach with his special footy that he's marketing. I mean, you questioned the changing of the line coaches, which clearly hasn't worked. And Brad Green being a footy president, would he have been part of that decision?
Yeah, just the other point. Not everyone will agree with this, but I would say that if you are changing the president, we can say Brad Green, but Brad Green is handing over to Steve Smith, and Steve Smith in that football club has more authority than Brad Green. That's the reality.
Yep.
And
has been involved in meetings.
Has been involved in meetings, including he was heavily involved in the hiring of the CEO. So you've got the new people coming in. They have to own the decision. That decision of who the coach is has to be owned. I'm not sure for continuity, can you do... If the footy manager footy operations boss, Alan Richardson goes, you're already transitioning the president and the CEO, can you do the coach as well? In my view, I think it's a bridge too far. And that's not to run out and re-sign Simon Goodwin. That's just, let's go next year. Let's go next year.
That's my view. That's my view. No, I agree. And he's a premiership coach, and it would be a great disrespect to sack him. And yes, they've said that they're prepared to do it, like the payout wouldn't stop them, but it would be a big...
Not to say they're going to do it, but the payout wouldn't stop them if they chose that was the decision
they did not rule out Luke Beveridge earlier this year, talking to Luke Beveridge. That is an absolute fact. And that's not just from Melbourne supporters, that's from people within the club. But, you're looking at names like, Longmire and Simpson and Buckley and Hinkley. Now, you would have had to have gone way down the track now to be thinking it would be worth making that massive decision and going with one of those coaches, wouldn't it? I mean, it's too late really to step in now and go. I think
if the CEO's coming in and the president effectively at the very end of the season, I think they've left their run too late.
What about the CEO having a crack at the state government on the weekend?
I didn't say that.
About working from home in his position as Chamber of Commerce boss.
Oh, well.
I suppose he's still got to represent that other body.
He's a Melbourne... I mean, why would you be riling the state government at a time you're trying to find a new home? Because he's still got to
represent the organisation that he's working for.
Well, what a joke.
Well, whether or not he should be still there if he's taken on the other job and, he's serving gardening time, yelling in the garden.
It's so clumsy.
Anyway, I don't see, and I thought it was good for you to report that the police and the payout wouldn't impede them, but I think they've left their run too late. Whereas with Voss, I see it as completely different. Carlton look more settled to me as a club. They've got problems, but they look at least to be clearer in what they're doing.
I think I agree with you, but I think the head of football position is such an important position at any footy club, particularly with a non-footy CEO as Paul Guerra is. I mean, he's never worked at a club ever. So I just think I think Alan Richardson might be in a bit of trouble, and I think that they need to really look at that position, and maybe that can save Simon Goodwin.
Yeah. We'll move on very quickly. The Bulldogs smashed the Giants. Full stop, end par. No. As far as final shaping, that is enormously significant. And now looks like, they're still sitting just outside the 8, the Bulldogs, but they look like they're the more deserving of being in there, don't they?
Well, GWS have had a pretty ordinary...
Some bad injuries.
I mean, they have got some bad injuries, but, everyone's had bad injuries. And I think that Toby Green... a lot to answer for. So he should have been really disappointed in himself, and I'm sure he was. But they had that woeful first half against Sydney the week before, and then they had a woeful 4 quarters against the Bulldogs. Now, do you put it down to, do you give them a mulligan? I just would have thought GWS would be more advanced, Jake, than now perilous in fighting for the spot.
Well, they've got a lot of talent, and they've got, Adam Kingsley's shown himself to be a coach that has very good clarity with how they play and how people's roles are done. They've just had games where they've just been really poor and games where they've been great.
They've also, even Kingsley had to admit it after the game, they've got the wood on them. Their record against GWS is really strong.
I think it's around the ball.
You know?
Well, it is around the ball. I know that we look at Norton kicking a large number of goals. It was interesting watching Sam Taylor come up against Darcy and just the powerlessness to stop Sam Darcy when the ball's coming in like that.
Mm. Yeah,
like
5 goals each, 10 goals between them.
Yep. If they get it to them on a dry September day, good luck with that.
Well, there's a lot of teams that will be looking at that and worrying for the same reason. But what they were able to do is hold up behind the ball, the Bulldogs, which has been their problem. They've got that capacity in front of the ball and they've got the good midfield, but GWS wasn't able to hurt them the other way.
The thing is, Aaron Norton's 9-year deal, which I sort of raised a few eyebrows around the comp, doesn't look quite as outlandish now.
No, well, he looks a hell of a lot better player with a good
Darcy.
Well, with someone good next to him, whether it was Ugelhagen previously or Darcy next to him. Earlier in the season, he couldn't hit the side of a barn, and he was barely touching it, and looked like he should go behind the ball. Now he's stuck with it.
Caro, you're right too, that the Bulldogs in the 8, some teams up above, higher up, would not want to run into them.
No.
Would you?
No, and they've proven they've done it from the bottom half of the 8 before.
We'll take a break there, come back with quick questions.
Get access to every episode as it drops. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Back inside. Look at the confidence of that kick. Max Holmes is off the chain. So is this man, Bailey Smith. He can get it and go. Will go down the line towards Dangerfield.
Where's Jack?
Cat starting to play some Harlem Globetrotters.
Here he is.
He'll look inside. Jack!
Yes!
Jack Martin. Remarkable.
Straight back into it. Jake, could Jack Martin be the bargain recruit of the year?
Well, he could be if he fires in the finals and Geelong get up and make the grand final or even win it. But Jack's record, I would take that on notice. Not
well, his talent's never been in doubt. It's staying on the ground.
Staying on the ground's always been an issue.
Is it an embarrassment to his previous club's development work?
No. He played a fair bit at Gold Coast. I don't know. He was just often. He did think that he was not handled as well as he should have been in his last years at Carlton. His view, and maybe the Cats have done something differently, better. Caro, the father-son. What is the future of the father-son rule?
I think it's in trouble. Yeah, I think it's in trouble. As every day goes by, I think that I have no doubt now that if you're a first-round pick, father-son academy, they're just going to get rid of all of them. It was driven initially by Andrew Bassett, the St Kilda president. I thought it was poor sportsmanship when he had a crack at Brisbane 2 days after their flag to talk about them getting the first-round pick, number 1 pick in Levi Ashcroft, but his timing was poor, his delivery was poor, but his message was strong. And I think he's got the backing of his brother, Paul Bassett, on the commission, and quite a few commissioners now.
He's leaving the commission soon though, isn't he, Paul?
Yeah, but he's there now and he's having a big say. So I think Simon Garlick's fight has really gained momentum. And I was at the Brisbane Collingwood game the other night. You got 2 Dacosses. I know that Josh we didn't think he'd be as good as he's turned out
under
to
the
be.
rule, if the rule changes to what it would be, Josh would still be taken by Collingwood.
Yep, and that's fine.
Yep.
That's fine. But neither Ashcroft and neither Nick and you've got at the moment. I think you've got Sam Darcy as well. It's just
Nick might have got there because, as it turned out, Collingwood would not have stupidly traded that first pick, which is pick 2 that year. They may have got him.
Yeah.
But the point is, I think if you're a first round pick, no father son, and I think that's what's going to happen.
Will they not wait to see the impact of the changed DVI, the point system that attaches
potentially
to picks?
This year? Because I don't think there's a Sam Darcy emerging. There's some good players.
I reckon they can actually fix this if they want to. You should be allowed to bid 2 first-round picks. I'm talk to Brisbane about people at Brisbane about it. If the Ashcrofts had give up 2 first rounds when you think, they would have done it in a heartbeat. It wouldn't even be a decision. They would have gone, yep, straight away, no problem.
I know, but why should they be gifted the best player in the competition? Even if it costs you 2 first-round picks.
Well, you should pay a fair price.
I tell you what else they should do if you're going to keep
3
the father's
first-round
son.
picks. It can be 3 then. It should be a higher cost. That's the point.
Well,
and that's what Bassett's largely banged on about, isn't it?
But there is going to be a higher cost.
Yep.
There's going to be a higher cost.
No, much higher.
I think first round, I'm beginning to think now it's got to go. And I also think maybe even 100 games isn't enough because there are so many more games played now than when the 100-game rule went in.
150?
Yeah. Yep.
So it becomes players of some note. Or maybe 100 games you could add best and fairest or something.
Does the Northern Academy reasonably get thrown into that? I mean, they just lump it together. You look at Leo. You look at Leo Lombard. Now he was found by them in the local area. Mother and family didn't want him playing Aussie rules footy. Would have probably gone over to NRL if anything. He's not involved in it at all. They get him involved in the academy. They turn a player that was not involved in the game into a number 1 draft pick, and if that happens, you don't have, and then you don't have a right to access that kid and for that kid to stay in the local community. Like even with Walter and Reed, these are local kids from the Gold Coast area. I think if you're going to put a team up there and invest in it, and the same with Brisbane, then you should
just pay more,
them.
Which they will be doing.
Yeah. So moving on to that. Speaking of draftees, who is your rising star winner for this year as it stands now, Jake?
Levi Ashcroft. Just apropos of nothing to do with the father-sons. I think he'd be
just a really
Caddy.
I
think Caddy's good, and he's eligible, I believe.
Can I just be a bit parochial for a moment? Who's been Richmond's best first-year player in your mind?
It's probably.
Trainer's been consistent.
Probably Luke Trainer. But
he's played the most games. I don't think he's the best.
Lawler's a much better player,
and Houghton is going to be a good player
too. They've got some good players.
I'd give it to Houghton.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Houghton's the one where you go, oh, okay. Yeah.
Disappointing to see Jonty Fall go down over the weekend too.
Yeah. I'm not sure about Lever. I'm just confusing with you. I think he gets a lot of brother votes. His brother does so much. You just bracket them together. The
one with
Ashcrofts.
the mullet,
Well, the lustrous Fauntleroy hair.
Levi's the outgoing one.
All right, that's all we've got time for this week. Thanks to you both for joining us. Thanks also to Channel 7 and Fox Footy for the audio we've used in this episode. If you'd like to get in touch, you can do so via email, realfootypod@theage.com.au. Don't forget to subscribe, rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. The Expert Tips podcast will be back on Thursday. We'll catch you then.